What's up everyone, it's ENDYMION, and this video is going to be a lot of stuff. From Warhammer allegedly getting beaten down behind the scenes, and Henry Cavill is beyond angry at the discourse surrounding the IP, Helldivers 2 continues to soar into the heavens and proves what can happen when you reject the agenda. There's also a farm simulator game that's bending the knee to the mob and ends up committing the cardinal sin and much more. So let's start with Warhammer and the new revelations surrounding that. Firstly, I should state, like in previous videos, what is being said here is based on some rumors from sources. So I would just like to clarify that first before moving on. Anyway, let's start with this article from that Park Place titled, Rumor, Henry Cavill not happy with Warhammer's introduction of female custodies, Amazon wanted female space marines. Allegedly, according to an insider within Games Workshop, things are not going over very well, and their star of the series is beyond pissed at the reception surrounding the series. Henry Cavill is furious that female custodies even exist, for obvious reasons, and this is worrying the internal staff at Games Workshop that things could be getting worse. This rumor comes from fellow YouTuber Arch, who spoke about how he recently had a conversation with one of his sources within Games Workshop itself, and it's not going over well according to that source. Arch said, and I quote, "My Amazon insider has given me some more information in regards to the female custodies debacle and Amazon's involvement in it, which may, at least in part, exonerate Games Workshop. According to my insider here, the attitude at the Amazon Games Workshop meetings reached downright threatening levels where the two sides were not happy with one another at all, with Games Workshop actually pushing back quite aggressively on the idea of female space marines. Probably understanding to do so would be devastating to their company. I mean, look at the sheer scale of the shitstorm that was created by female custodies, which is not anywhere near as massive a faction as the Space Marines. Games Workshop knowing this would be a terrible idea pushed back a lot, but Amazon were not willing to give up on this either, and may have carried out various little tactics like threatening to bring back people on Amazon, who were selling third-party goods for 40K related stuff, as they did even take down things like alternative dice sellers and people who were selling bases and so on. That might have been a thing, and they might also have perhaps been talking about leaving the conversation altogether. Eventually, my insider says Games Workshop caved in part and the female custodies were a compromise solution intended both to heal relationships with Amazon by going, okay, how about this? You'll have your female power armor, but we won't do it with the Space Marines, okay? And also as a way to demonstrate to Amazon that this was not going to go over very well. As for Henry Cavill, I have also heard something related to him now, namely that he is quite upset about this change. He is pissed at it, but he is not going to walk. Bearing in mind that we don't even know if it is possible for him to walk at this point, as his introduction and co-starring and producing in this was one of the earliest fundamental pieces of news about the Amazon Games Workshop TV show. For all we know, he could be bound hand and foot by contractual obligation and penalties at this point. Alternatively, again, well, it's an Amazon paycheck. I'm not entirely sure I would be willing to turn that down, much less somebody who is an actual actor and this being his job. I wouldn't be surprised if he is indeed quite upset about this because this is also his main faction, the Adeptus Custodes." End quote. Arch also said his insider claimed that Amazon uses automated systems to collect and notify the higher-ups when it comes to complaints being shuffled towards their shows and intellectual properties. So for example, with Rings of Power, their automated system was likely having to work overtime compiling all the relevant data as to what fans were mad about when it came to that show. And the same is happening here with Warhammer. Things have already gone nuclear and the AI is getting so much negative feedback that it's allegedly starting to ask for actual real human intervention to deal with the level of complaints. You know how bad things have to get for your AI to get so overwhelmed with negativity that it starts to question the reason why it exists in the first place? That's how much pushback has been gathering over the past 2 weeks or so concerning this. This poor AI is fighting for its life in the trenches of the internet as it tries to meet their overlord's demands and wants, although it's like Arch said. The Custodes are a smaller faction in the lore, and the Space Marines are obviously much larger and far more prominently known. I mean, you have Space Marine 2 coming out at some point this year, which is a big release for Games Workshop because the brand power behind that name is obviously profitable like crazy. And if they're getting this much pushback from custodies, imagine what'll happen when Amazon or Games Workshop reveals, oh, actually, there's always been female space marines. You think the custodies thing was nuclear already? Dude, a potential female space marine lore change would be demon core levels of backlash. We'd be witnessing levels of anger from a fanbase equivalent to 1,000 suns imploding. And if Amazon and Games Workshop are smart, which doesn't seem to be the case here, that reality is no longer a case of if, but simply when. And if Amazon were smart, they'd take their poor AI bots compiling of all the complaints and actually listen to the fan base. Remember that they didn't do that with Rings of Power, and barely even half of the audience that tuned into Rings of Power even bothered finishing the first season. That's millions of dollars wasted on sets, CGI, and everything else that barely anyone even watched. Like, think about that. Not even half of your audience finished your show, which means when you start season 2, even less people are going to know what's going on because they didn't bother finishing it anyways. So now you're starting your season 2 with both hands tied behind your back, and you're now having to explain to viewers what the hell happened because they tuned out. Talk about a problem that didn't have to happen, but hey, that's what we're dealing with here. What's annoying is that all of these changes simply exist to appease Amazon and Amazon alone. It's clear that Games Workshop obviously knows this push by Amazon is nothing short of catastrophic when it comes to their brand and sales. But this is what happens when you make a bad deal with someone who clearly has way more power than you. Games Workshop is Lando in this situation and Amazon is Vader. They keep altering the deal and Games Workshop is praying that they don't alter it any further. But the truth is that Games Workshop has been clamoring to get their IP into the mainstream like Star Wars. And like I said back in January, when they officially announced all of this, that Warhammer has the potential to become the next Star Wars if done right. I know that sounds crazy and hyperbolic to some, but it's true. It's a universe that's ripe with potential to be made into multiple shows, animated spin-offs, games, and so on. Plus, we saw with Fallout's Prime series that when you make something that resonates with people, even though I personally had a lot of problems with Fallout's live-action series, but at the very least, the show ended up boosting the sales of the games by 7,000% in Europe alone. And Fallout 4 has entered the highest selling games of 2024, and that game is like, what, 10 years old at this point or more. The reason this happened is because of the Prime show. It opened the series to many new players or people who maybe didn't know or cared about Fallout prior to this. And that's a good thing, because it shows that when you make something that resonates, even if it's full of plot holes, conveniences, and even some lore-breaking moments, you can still spin it into a massive financial surge for your company and brand. And that's likely what Games Workshop is looking at and going, imagine if Warhammer 40K saw a 7,000% increase in sales. That would be insane. Those executive yearly bonuses would become biblical in response, and this is why I never understand why companies allow their IPs to be bastardized like Witcher or Halo did. Because by making a bad show that rejects the lore and hates fans, all you end up doing is worsening your franchise's potential, and for what exactly? Woke brownie points, I guess? Like I said, Warhammer has the potential to go supernova even beyond what Fallout is, and Amazon is moronic in their approach here. You saw what Fallout did. Why are you purposely going down the Rings of Power route with Warhammer? One of the most based IPs in existence. Really? You guys are idiots. Seriously, listen to your poor AI slave robot that only exists to compile information for you. The poor thing is drowning in information and negativity. Take that to heart and turn it into a positive here. You could literally become the next golden era Disney in terms of sales and relevance if you just listen to your fan base and give people what they really want. And in terms of Henry Cavill, I mean, why are you pissing off this guy? The dude's name alone brings people in. You could have a show about staring at the sunset, but if Henry Cavill is there, the show will generate millions of views on his name alone. I already know that many women, and even guys watching this right now, would 100% watch a show where Henry Cavill just sits on a bench and watches the sunset talking about nerd culture. That shit would become a #1 rated show overnight, dude. Like, I've never seen a more easy slam dunk in my life than what Amazon has here. You have Henry Cavill, you have Warhammer, you have the money and access to a company that is full of people who clearly know the lore. Just use it, goddammit. Don't pull another Witcher Netflix situation where you fumbled the bag so poorly for no reason, then your spin-off projects get cancelled, And your main flagship series ends 2 seasons early and now has to roll multiple novels into 2 seasons of content instead because you know nobody's going to care to watch that much anyways. How can this be done in such a way? It has to be deliberate and by design, right? Well, according to one former executive, that might be exactly what Amazon is attempting to do here. Also from that Park Place, and it's titled, former Epic Games executive suggests Amazon tank Warhammer with wokeness in order to purchase Games Workshop on the cheap. The tweet in question comes from Alexei Savchenko, who chimed in on what they believe is happening with Games Workshop and Amazon, where they said, "You know, if I was Amazon, I would continue applying pressure with TV series for lore changes, dismantle Games Workshop relationships with the fan base, drop their price and just buy them for penny on the dollars, and then launch TV faithful to lore, just saying." Crazy to see a former executive at Epic Games speaking so candidly like this. In case you don't know, Epic owns the Unreal Engine and a little game called Fortnite, maybe you've heard of it. But what Alexei says here could very well be what's happening, and based on all the info presented, it makes a lot of sense. You see something that's pretty expensive to purchase. I mean, Games Workshop is valued currently around $3 billion. Then you force them to sign a really bad deal because you know they're desperate for fame and success. Then you use that deal to twist the arm of Games Workshop into giving you more leverage, but you don't do it because you want those changes per se yourselves, but because you know by making those changes, like female custodies or space marines, would absolutely piss off the fan base at large. Backlash ensues, people start talking, shares drop, Games Workshop panics, and they're unable to do anything because you got them already by the balls. The ink is dried and now they're freaking out. Then that $3 billion value drops until eventually you can just buy them on the cheap, and voila, now all their bases belong to you. It's classic manipulation tactics at hand, just on a much larger scale of course, and once the dust settles and Amazon gets exactly what they want, they theoretically end up appeasing all people on their side. Think about it, the woke investors are happy because they get their representation for female custodies, space marines, and God knows what else. I fully expect them to gender swap important characters because diversity is our strength and all that nonsense. They end up making their executives happy because hey, we just acquired a big company with loads of IP that we can exploit, and Games Workshop at that point can't do anything whatsoever in response because they have new corporate masters. It's really seeming like we're stumbling towards that future where only a few companies exist that just end up owning everything and they just become more powerful than governments even. It's like the Cyberpunk 2077 world. There's going to be like 4 or 5 Arasakas and nothing else. Which is dystopian, yes, but we're slowly moving towards that future already. I mean, Microsoft buys Activision Blizzard, not to mention Bethesda. Sony buys companies, Disney has Star Wars and Marvel, so of course Amazon is going to likely attempt to absorb Games Workshop and much more in the future too. Eventually, you won't really be able to boycott these companies because they'll just own everything you need anyways. And yes, dear viewer, that is definitely dystopian, but also a scary reality that is going to eventually come true. Maybe not in our lifetime, mind you, but definitely in the next 100 years at least, we're all going to be eating paste out of tubes, with barcodes stamped on the back of our heads while propaganda gets streamed into your eye sockets via your neural implants. And all your custodies, space marines, even your god emperor will be gay and gender ambiguous if they have their way. Don't you love it where entertainment is going? Nothing is genuine anymore. Everything that sounds great on paper just can't exist unless it jumps through 30 hoops in order to appease people. I mean, we're seeing the dance monkey dance shenanigans play out right now actually. There's this farm simulator game called Farm Folks, and before you say what does this have to do with Warhammer, trust me, this all connects. Anyway, they decided to ask their fan base about jiggle physics. Originally, as seen in this tweet, it was about fish bowls and the jiggle physics of the water and such. Wholesome so far, right? Eventually, they asked what about the jiggle physics of the female anatomy, and uh-oh, they made an oopsie. Now the Right Thing crowd came to attack farm folks and accused them of wrong think, which in today's age is akin to being accused of being a witch and getting swish-allayed on the open fire. Eventually, the backlash towards being sexist pigs for daring to ask about jiggle physics led to this developer having to issue an apology. Here's what they said, and I quote, "Hey folks, we like to address a recent post where we came to our community asking for feedback. Our intent is always to connect and grow with our players, but it's clear that we really missed the mark on our recent community feedback posts. For that, we all sincerely apologize. We had received concerns about the female players' model breast physics in the past, and we thought we should ask the community what felt more appropriate. Unfortunately, this crossed the line. We try to foster a welcoming community, and the post and subsequent replies made many of our community members uncomfortable and alienated. The reply made about 150% physics was also inappropriate, and we apologize for that. We are taking the necessary steps to learn from this, and we're committed to doing better moving forward. We value the feedback of our community and work hard to include everyone in the discussion. We want to create a game that feels alive, which is why we pay close attention to every aspect of our world, from how weather and time affect the world to the character's interactive presence within it. We want everyone to feel included in the game's development, and we'll be re-evaluating how to best interact with the community, as well as how to best ask for feedback from the community in the future. Your input is instrumental as we continue to develop Farm Folks. We'll keep sharing updates and progress on X and Discord. Your enjoyment and how you choose to experience our world is our utmost priority. Thank you for being a part of our journey and for your support and understanding as we grow." End quote. Oh boy, dear Farm Folks development team, you guys just committed one of the biggest cardinal sins you could have done when it came to your game's brand and identity. You apologized and then bent the knee when you should have standed proudly instead. Even the gamer Stacey Henley made an article about this controversy and brought in Stellar Blade somehow into the conversation, but Stacey Henley even agrees this misses the target audience. Look, the point here is that the people upset about those changes, they were never going to buy your games anyways. They just want you to change stuff to fit their agenda and perspective. But trust me, even if you do that, you're not going to benefit from those alterations. In fact, you'll just lose money, goodwill, and fans in the long run, because these people do not buy your products. And this connects to Warhammer, because what Farm Folks is doing here is what Warhammer has done with Custodes and all of that too. You are not catering to your audience by doing this. You are simply making things worse for no other reason than to pander, and that's obviously not a good idea. And like many people on Twitter have been saying, all you're doing is changing things for people who are going to buy your stuff anyways. Then of course there's Helldivers 2, which is what these developers and companies should be doing instead. From Games Radar we have this article titled, "Helldivers 2 is already one of PlayStation's all-time bestsellers, and it's all thanks to the PC version." This information comes courtesy of video games analyst Matt Piscatella, who gathered all the sales data regarding which games are doing the best so far in 2024. To absolutely nobody's surprise, Helldivers 2 has become the best-selling game of 2024 so far. Second was Call of Duty, which, I guess. Third is Dragon's Dogma 2, and fourth is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But obviously, it's not surprising at all that Helldivers is doing what it's doing even months after release. And what's even crazier is that Helldivers 2 is currently Sony's 7th highest selling game of all time. And remember friends, it only came out a few months ago, and this is comparing the game to stuff that has been out for years at this point. So this is beyond impressive, and yes, this does mean Helldivers 2 is here to stay and will absolutely continue to get support. And I genuinely believe the game will change how live service offerings are handled in the future. Because like I said in previous videos, Helldivers 2 has no seasons or anything like that. Stuff just kind of happens at random within the game, which obviously simulates the randomness of warfare, but it also helps keep Helldivers 2 in the conversation for much longer too. Because it could be a random Monday night and suddenly some alien horde has burst out of the ground and we gotta kill them. Or a new pack gets released, or gun, or whatever. The point is that what they're doing is working, and then articles keep getting made, and the online discussion keeps going. And what I think Warhammer and that Farm Folks game can learn from Helldivers 2 is that the game has successfully pushed back the nonsense surrounding it pretty much completely. Besides their community manager being a dummy, but she coincidentally quieted down following the incident because I'm sure the Arrowhead bosses just told her to stop. Also listed in the report, Matt Piscatella says that the PC has been instrumental to the success of Helldivers 2. And without the PC release, the game's sales would not crack the top 20 so far of the year, so that's a very big deal and good for them. I think PlayStation and PC being Sony's targeted audience going forward is a great idea. Mostly because it means I get to play games with my PC buddies like Yellow Flash and my Discord member pals without having to buy a gaming PC myself. but stay on my console peasant side over here on my PS5. But it's clear that Helldivers 2's growing numbers are of course because the game is just fun to play. Which it is. I mean, if I'm playing a live service game, it's probably pretty good, considering how I try to avoid those kinds of games if I can almost always. But again, it's because Helldivers 2 rejects every agenda, and I mean that in every way. Liberal, conservative, whatever, they don't care. None of that matters to Helldivers as an experience, and I like that a lot. No one group gets special treatment, and for good reason, because it would separate the fan base and just cause discourse. Stuff like Warhammer and more could learn from Helldivers, and it shows how easy it is to foster a strong community and make a load of money because you don't have to cater to every whim. If someone wants a pride flag cape and your other customer wants a MAGA helmet, just say no to both. Just leave your stuff at the wayside and let's go shoot some bugs and robots together, and I love that. There's simplicity in the chaos, and I think more games need to do that same mentality going forward. Because when you disrespect your paying customer, you end up like the other examples in this video. I really don't understand why that's so hard to comprehend. Just reject all of it, full stop. Just make a fun game and keep all the real world crap out of it. Of course, most activists can't help themselves and will say things like gaming has always been political. But let them keep that mentality. I'm sure it'll help them when their studios fail and they're living on EI instead. For the actual paying customers out here like you and me, we're clearly supporting the things that don't hate us, and that's great to see. So maybe Amazon is doing all of this in order to reduce Games Workshop's value so they can buy them on the cheap. That could be a possibility. But I want to ask a question. Is that money being saved really worth pissing off millions of fans, angering Henry Cavill of all people, and sowing chaos and bad will just to save some money? If you're a company who can afford it like Amazon, I personally don't think so. And good word of mouth can be invaluable when it comes to the continued success of your products. Don't believe me? Just look at Helldivers and you'll see that it's true. The less you cater to woke communist morons who have no money, jobs, or prospects, the better your company will be. In case people forgot, I regret to inform you that no, you cannot pay your bills with thoughts and prayers. And you are not entitled to success and fame without working for it and putting your all into everything you do. The world simply does not owe you anything, regardless of who you are or what you identify as. You may find that cold of me to say, but it's the truth. I don't care how many people of any color or skin made a game, or whether you consulted a group before making something. In the end, if your product is ass and you vocally say I'm a terrible person for simply existing, then I just hope you fail. It's as Grum said, just wait 2 years, don't buy their products, and a lot of this nonsense will self-correct itself. And these insane people are mad that more and more are waking up to that realization every single day. So as always, thank you for watching, subscribe, share, and like the video, and thanks to my patrons for their undying support. You have far more power than you realize, dear friends, so take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.